Hi, it's Laura at Aquamarine18 Tarot and Books. Thanks for stopping by my channel today. Welcome or welcome back. This is my latest installment of the Top Tarot Trumps tag started by Masha over at Musings by Masha, inviting us to share our favorite representations of each of the major arcana, one every couple of weeks throughout the year. And we have arrived at the Lovers. And so far in this series, I have kind of tried to stick with only 5 cards per video just to keep things contained. Um, Not with this one. I have actually quite a lot of lovers cards that I really like, so I've picked more than 5. I will timestamp them below in a non-spoilery way. These are not the only lovers cards that I love, they're just the ones that jumped out to me, standing in front of my tarot shelf and thinking like which decks have lovers cards that I really, really like. There are definitely others more that I could have picked. We could have been here for a very long time. And that's not true of all of the major arcana. Some of them I'm finding, more than 5 come to me very quickly and very immediately and very readily. And others I find I really have to think more because they tend to be cards that I find the representational choices more challenging for whatever reason. So um, this is a card that I love, and the Lovers is my birth card as well. So I have a connection to it in that way. So I'm going to share these in no particular order, and as usual, I have kind of a mix of traditional and non-traditional kinds of depictions of the lovers, mostly leaning into the not so traditional to no one's surprise. So the first one that I really like is the Fyodor Pavlov tarot. And in some ways this lover's card feels, quite a traditional representation to me in terms of having two people um, in an outdoor setting who are um, you know, clearly being depicted as lovers. In this case, they're hand fasted. You can see here with the hand fasting ribbon, which I like. I think it speaks to a commitment and thinking about the lovers as a card, not just of kind of romantic love or particular kinds of love, but also of choice, of deliberate and conscious choice. I think that the hand fasting symbolism is really apt in that way. I really love and appreciate that Fyodor Pavlov has chosen, very explicitly to depict trans people and trans people in a happy and loving way. That's really important. We don't see it enough. We don't see it a lot. And the Fyodor Pavlov deck is one that I think very clearly to me when I look at this deck and when I use this deck, it comes from such a kind of loving place for queer and trans people, and I feel very um, supported by this deck. I think that it's really beautiful and so kind of classical in its aesthetic, and we don't get to see that very often. We don't get to see queer and trans bodies celebrated and you know loved in artwork like this really very often at all. I think that this deck is really really special, and this card is one of a handful that make that deck so special for me. Another Lover's card that I chose, completely different, is the Lover's card in the Numinous Tarot by Cedar McLeod. And this one has a whole bunch of people here, and all their kind of interconnections are drawn there in the middle. And I love this one, in terms of depicting what I would think of looking at the card as like found family and the relationships and the connections that you choose. Again, bringing uh, multiple aspects of how I think of the Lover's card together. That kind of feelings aspect of feelings for other people and different kinds of relationships and different kinds of loving relationships, not all of which are necessarily romantic, for example, but are loving in different kinds of ways, and depicting that in a kind of community, right? The communities that we choose to build and who we choose to build community with, as an aspect of the Lover's card, I think is really meaningful, and I really like this card, and I think it's very pretty. I also chose the Thea's Tarot Lovers. I appreciate a lover's card that is sexy, and I think that this one, that's the direction that the creator Ruth West chose to go with it. And I think in the context of this deck that it makes a lot of sense. And I really like, I do like some armpit hair in a deck. I do. I'm not gonna lie. So I just like the kind of passionate expression on the person's face. Here, I like the closeness, in this lover's card that, yeah, just feels like, a particular sort of love in a lover's card that is, of course, um, an important one. So I I like this one. I think it's also really beautiful. I chose the considerate cat. This one, this one just makes me happy. Um, we get two cats and they're nuzzling. If they're anything like my two cats, they would be like this 1 minute and then they would be bickering with each other the next. But they're inside the house here, and you can see this rain outside there, and some different plants and things. But it's raining, and I feel like this lover's card has kind of a sense of loving relationships as a kind of refuge from the world. Not that like there's anything horribly wrong about rain. Rain is important, but I feel like it's a rainy day that you wouldn't necessarily want to be outside in, and here, the lovers are together, riding out that storm, and I really like that. I think that this is really sweet. And I think, something that this deck I think does really well is it has these cards that are very expressive, and convey the card, but also the cats are not like anthropomorphized really. Like they look like cats, right? Like they're not posed like humans um, in order to depict the card. So I really like that about this deck overall, as well as that it's a deck that benefits rescue cats. I think is really great. So this lover is just, it reminds me of what I, want on a rainy day, being at home with my loved ones, including my cat loved ones, in a little cuddle. So that lover's card makes me happy. I also chose the Naturescapes Tarot lover's card, and this is a field of lavender. And my reason for choosing this card is the entirely personal reason that one nice, like, loving afternoon out that my spouse and I once had was to a lavender farm. So there's a lavender farm pretty close to where I live, like down the highway a ways. I don't know, it's like 20-minute, 30-minute drive or something like that. And they have these beautiful fields just like this, and you can go walking in them. And they do different, people go there to have their photo taken for different kinds of events and things like that. And they have a little shop there where they have lavender. Um, you can get kind of lavender infused items and dried lavender, which I've gotten there a few times. And it's just such a kind of romantic atmosphere at that place. And so this lover's card is a favorite strictly because it reminds me of that. Not because I think it says anything, in particular about the lovers as a tarot card or as an archetype or any of these kinds of things. Just because this one evokes fond personal memories. This is a lover's card that I enjoy. I also chose the lovers in Tarot Ultraviolet. And this deck, I love this deck. This is one of my favorite springtime decks to work with the color palette of this deck. There's the back is cool too. I love this deck very much. And this, I would say, is one of the very few lovers cards in my collection, and very few lovers cards that I've seen really, that I would very, very specifically read as a non-monogamous relationship. Or as a, you know, more than two humans in a loving, close relationship. And I love that. Being in open relationships for my entire adult life exclusively. I love that, and I like to see that representation. I think it's really beautiful. I like this kind of playful Cupid figure hiding out, um, below the people there. I think that's kind of fun, and I like the people here. I like how they're all sitting together. I like seeing different, kinds of relationships depicted in the Lover's card other than, you know, cis heteromonogamous relationships. And I think, a good handful of Lover's cards in my collection that have more than two people on them. But like this, I don't read as a kind of polyamorous or non-monogamous relationship card. I read this much more so as a community, or a chosen family or a found family kind of dynamic. Whereas this one to me is like very clearly a non-monogamous family. And I love it. I love it for that reason. I love Tarot Ultraviolet so much. So much. The last Lover's card that I chose, I think, is not going to surprise anyone because I've talked about this Lover's card before, and if you've watched my channel for a while, you're probably wondering why I haven't mentioned it, so you know which one is coming. Maybe my favorite Lover's card ever. It's very hard for me to pick a one favorite, but this is one that really speaks to me. And it is, of course, the Next World Tarot by Christy C. Rode Lover's card. And the way that, this figure is putting a hand on the other and handing them, some spoons to keep going, I think is just really emotionally affecting for me personally, is really powerful. And the way that this is shown in terms of the person, it's them stepping out of a mirror, right? uh I just think that this image says so much, and it says so much in terms of love, in terms of self-love, in terms of fostering self-love, in terms of like choosing and prioritizing and valuing it. It is a very special card to me. I would love to have like a poster of this. I think this Lover's card is absolutely profound. I it is always the first card that comes to mind for me for the Lover's card. I found it interesting. I don't think the book, interestingly enough, I don't think that the guidebook actually talks about, the spoons and spoon theory and that symbolism in particular, and it might be a matter of like presuming that the audience for this deck would already know what that is about. But I think it's a really, really good choice for a Lover's card depiction. So I adore this Lover's card. So that's a lot of lovers. Lots of lovers to love. The Fyodor Pavlov Lover's card, I adore. Considerate Cat, I love. the Numinous Tarot. I love Thea's Tarot. I love the Lover's card. I love the Lover's card in Naturescapes. I love all of the lovers in the Tarot Ultraviolet. And I adore the Next World Tarot lovers so much. I really like the Lover's card, it seems. When I first found out that the Lover's card was my birth card, I was a little bit like not into it, I guess I'll say. I related much more to the Moon card, which is the card of Pisces, as a Pisces. The Lover's card I didn't have such a, such a connection to, I would say. And that ultimately I think came down to the fact that when I first was learning about the birth card thing, and adding up the birthday, I was in the middle of kind of learning with the Smith Waite deck. And that lover's card does not speak to my spirit, really. In the ways that some of these others, all of these others do. And so this is a card for me, like the Lovers is a card for me that really speaks to the ways in which representation is important and having a range of representations is important and how creators choose to interpret and reinterpret and and depict these ideas that are the major arcana is really important because these kinds of representations I think can completely, transform how you feel about a particular card, right? Um, I love the Lovers card now. So I'm looking forward to hearing about other folks' favorite Lovers cards. If you want to tell me about your favorite Lovers cards in the comments, I would love to know. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one for the Chariot. Bye.